Hello, it's me, and we're going to tackle this, I guess what you call a face-turning octahedron. That's to distinguish it from the corner-turning octahedrons, which actually exist out there too. But this one is a face-turning, which means that, well, the face turns. And as such, it has characteristics that will help us solve this. So when dealing with a new puzzle, and one of the main reasons that I like to highlight some of these puzzles is not just solving it, but going through the techniques and the strategies, because my hope is you can apply them to a variety of other puzzles, especially new ones that you might not be familiar with. So in first getting this, what I wanted to do first is correlate this with other puzzles that are out there, which can help in terms of the solution, help in terms of finding what a possible strategy is with this. So I first looked to see what does this correlate with, what does this look like that I've already solved. Well, we already talked about this guy over here. As you recall, this is a skewb. This was a diamond skewb. I do have a tutorial on how to get through this, and basically we used this skewb in order to decide how to best approach this, because it has the same characteristics. And we talked about putting these guys in place with these guys in place. So when I look at this, I try to correlate that with each other, and that I can maybe solve these parts here the way I would solve these parts here, these corners. Now I'm going to define these as corners because they articulate more than two sides with each other. In this case it's four sides. In the cube it's going to be three sides. So we've got corners here. So when deciding how to solve these as edges, and I call these edges because the definition of an edge on a face is it basically articulates two faces together. So this one articulates between two, or joins between two. So we've got corners, we've got edges, and then we've got these centers over here. So now that we've defined that, we can see if we can maybe correlate the solve with these things. Well, when deciding how to move these guys around, why don't I try to move these edges the way I would move, say, what I did with other face turners? So because it is a face turner, maybe I can correlate it with, say, the 3x3, the Rubik's Cube, and how to move these edges around. Well, you recall, with a 3x3, as these are edges, much like these are edges, to move these guys around, we have that algorithm when it's a cube, R, U, Ri, U, R, 2U, Ri. What that did is it kept this edge here steady while it rotated these guys around. Kind of did things with the corners here, but that's okay. So because this is an algorithm that turns the face all the way around and moves these, maybe I can somehow correlate that with this guy over here. So the end result, when I go like R, U, Ri, U, R, now I've moved U twice. I've got to move it twice to bring it back. 2U, Ri, you can see that that moves that around. Now that's as opposed to the other face turner, which is the dodecahedron, the Megaminx. This has 5 faces, and I do the same algorithm to move these guys around. But notice when I do that, it's not just the front part that's held constant. It's this and it's this. So if I were to do the same thing, R, U, Ri, U, R, we've done 2 U's. Now we have to do 3 U's to bring it back. So 1, 2, 3 U and Ri. That kept this constant, but rotated these. So what this algorithm actually does is it rotates 3 corners, or 3 edges rather, keeping all the other edges constant. In the case of a cube, it's 1. If you go up to a higher order level, it's going to be 2. That's kept in there. So when I look at this, maybe I can correlate that, because what all of these have in common is that they're all 3 layered puzzles. 1, 2, 3, right? This is 3 layered as well, just in terms of how many layers that they have on each side. 1, 2, and of course you've got that here. This is also 3 layered. 1, 2, and then 3 down here. So for the Megaminx, I had to go R, U, Ri, U, R, 3U, 1, 2, 3, Ri, to move these guys around. So it's 3U because it's 5 faces, so you need 3U to bring it back. And with the cube, if it's R, U, Ri, U, R, 2U, Ri, to bring it back, then maybe over here I can move these around by, instead of doing 3U, 2U, maybe just 1U, because RU, if I were to do RU, RIU, That's 2 u's, just one more will take it all the way around. So let's see what happens. If I define this as r, this is u, this is, I guess, the bottom, and this is the f, then we'll go like r, u, ri, u, r, now just one u and ri. So what that did, if I were to turn this back here, is it did rotate these. It didn't hold any of these constant, and it rotated all these 3, just like I rotated 3 here and 3 over here. So it actually kind of fits. I did exactly the same algorithm, but just did 1 u instead of instead of 2 u's or 3 u's because of the lower order there. But what's also interesting here is notice that when I did that, it moved these guys around but kind of messed up my corners. Same thing here. With this guy, it didn't mess up the corners, which is also interesting because now I have a way of isolating it. So now I have an algorithm that can just isolate these movements over here and not change anything else. That has a couple of nuances. Let's say I wanted to rotate it back. All I would do is I would reverse that algorithm. So instead of RU, I do RI, UI, RUI, RI, UI, R. And then that brings it back. So one of the aspects when discovering these patterns that you can do here is if you completely isolate just 3, then I can do a process of construction and deconstruction, or deconstruction and construction. Now let's do it. Let's say I move this here and I wanted to move this around. If I do the algorithm, I'm just going to move these and then I can reconstruct it back. So that helps for the solve. So this is the process that I go through when I see a novel cube. First thing I did is I decided, okay, this is a 3-layer. It's a face turner, so maybe it'll have characteristics like other 3-layered face turners. So I took an algorithm that moves the edges, modified it a little bit for the unique shape, and I was able to discover a nice little algorithm for that. So what about, and we already talked about these corners. I correlated it right with the corners over here. So I'm going to do a crisscross algorithm, which will have a certain effect. That crisscross algorithm is down, down, up, up, and that causes specific movements along with these guys, which we'll get into. Up, up. But what about these? Centers over here? How can I move those? Well, if this is very similar to this, and this is a diamond version, the diamond skewb is similar to the actual skewb, as you recall here. This looks like the next order up from the diamond skewb. So the next order up from the actual skewb is the master skewb. So basically, perhaps this is to this as this is to this. And it's what this does is this actually adds another layer. So you've got the diamond portion here, but then you've got this other layer that kind of hangs out there, that 3x3 sort of layer. Well, this is exactly the same thing. This turns like a skewb, exactly like a skewb, but you've got this other layer that's hanging there. So what I then do is say, well, maybe I can use the algorithms and strategies for the master skewb and apply it to the face-turning octahedron. So let's take a look at that. So this had if you recall, and I did do a tutorial on how to solve this guy. Basically, what I did is I did a commutator that went down, down, up, then down, up, up. So what that'll do is just down, down, up, then down, up, up. Big deal, right? Who cares? But if I add on a layer that is not associated with that, and I move that down, then do the same thing, down, down, up, and then move that layer that I moved down back up again, then I reverse what I just did, down, up, up. It's a very simple commutator, and I can see the predictability of what happens with that. And this yellow and blue went down here. This orange and blue went over here, and this yellow and green went over here. And I've been through this with previous tutorials, but not assuming that those have been seen. I basically caused a very predictable 3-cycle along here. And if I move it back and do the same thing, down, down, up, move this back up again, down, up, up. I continue to cycle these around until I do it once more, down, down, up, then blast this one up again, down, up, up. So I was figuring, well, maybe I can do something very similar to this, and maybe that can cycle these guys around. So this will be the down, down, and up side over here. And what I'll do is, just like with the master skewb, as it behaves maybe similarly to this guy over here, I'm going to take a middle layer and move it down here. In this case, it'll be the one that's down, down to the right. So that'll be this one over here. Now the one that I'm going to move is going to be the one that moves this triangle here. Let's actually move it with this one here. I just want to make sure that the colors are actually something that we can predictably see a difference in. So anyway, we're going to move this down here, this middle layer down. Then we're going to go down, down, up. Let's move this middle layer back. And now just reverse it. Down, up, up. Now let's take a look what happened. Everything was the same, except you see this piece and this piece appeared to swap with each other. But I know that that's probably not what happened, because this is a 3-cycle type thing that happened with the master skewb. So the suspicion is that the red one that was here went here, still looking red. The red one that was here went here. And then the white one that was here went over here. So if my prediction is correct, when I do that same algorithm again, white will be here, red will still be here, but it's a different red, and this red will come up over here. So move it down, and we do our down, down, up, then move this middle slice back up, and reverse what we just did. Down, up, up, and that's exactly what we found happened. So now if I do it again, everything should be corrected. But what's interesting about this, I now have an algorithm that isolates the corners, that isolates the edges, and a commutator that isolates the centers. And with that kind of isolation comes the ability to solve things independently. Right?
Right.
Okay, so move this down, 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 up, move it back, down, up, up. Okay, so that's the general approach that I take with new puzzles. Just kind of study it for a little bit, correlate it with what you've already known, see if maybe you've already designed algorithms. It is a 3-layer puzzle, similar to other 3-layer puzzles, so I can move these corners with algorithms known to these guys and just experiment and see what happens. It also looks like this, so I can treat the corners similarly. And it also has characteristics like this, like the master skewb, so I can deal with this layer similarly as well. Once we have that, we have now designed a potential strategy to get this thing solved. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through the process of scrambling it, and then we're going to see if these isolation of variables will actually work. And I'll tell you that even if you sit there and think about ways of solving it based on generating commutators and algorithms, until you actually attempt it, you might not see things that you didn't anticipate, such as certain parity situations that you just wouldn't know unless you actually tried to do it. So try to not just make it theoretical, try to practically solve it as well. All right, solve it the rest of the way. Alakazam. And there we have it. It's nice and scrambled. Now, I'll also say that I've had a lot of requests for collection videos, and I want to assure you that it's coming. There is one coming. I just have to get everything in gear for that. But just to help satisfy your variety cube needs, I plan on incorporating more puzzles in different solves, just to just to sort of help satisfy that, like I did with all of these guys over here. This guy is something else entirely. There. So in any case, let's see if we can take a look at the strategies that we have and solve it. Now I'm going to solve it backwards as opposed to how I usually do it. Normally I do centers, then I do edges, then I do corners. I'm going to do it backwards only because it more likely represents the progression of how I viewed and how I figured out how I'm going to solve this, starting off with this. So my first phase is going to be the diamond phase, so I'm just going to go ahead and put in my my corners the same way. Now, I'm not going to assume that you all saw this, it's out there, but let's go ahead and see what we can do. We'll start off with the green corners. So let's find the other one. This is done just by corner placement, so this is going to have to come over to here, almost like a 3x3 strategy. We just have to say move this cross over here. So this is done, quote, intuitively, which just basically means positioning is fine. So over here. Now the other green one, which is here, so let's move this down, across, down. So this is all just placement. Again, just as I would a Rubik's Cube, sort of, and up. All right, so we're very quickly able to get the greens here, silvers are lined up, reds are lined up, and whites are lined up. You know, so basically I have 3 different strategies for all 3 different pieces. But they're pretty simple. They're all derivative. They're derivative of other strategies and other algorithms. So I needed not memorize anything new. So what I'm going to do now, just like I did with the diamond skewb, is turn this upside down and get the layer up here. So how am I going to do that? Well, what I'm going to do is first find the color that's supposed to be opposite here. And that's going to be one that lines up with the colors over here. So which one does? Well, I see red down here. It lines up with these. Orange, I don't see any oranges down here. And there's another orange over here. So what that tells me is that if I were to line this up here, orange is on the top. So what I need to do without messing this up is I need to put these over here. Now if you recall, if you wanted to refer back to them, I did have a strategy of doing that as explained by the diamond skewb, the regular skewb, also the skewb ultimate. And what that algorithm did is it was that crisscross algorithm where you went down, down, up, up. When you did that, it caused 2 things to potentially happen with these corners. It caused them all to shift. If I were to start on the right side here and do right side down and do it from that way, it caused everything to turn clockwise. But what happened is that the side that I turned from, these 2 corners over here, the 2 that I grabbed and turned down first, this would not just shift, it would rotate. This would not just shift here, it would also rotate. This would shift but would not rotate. And if I grabbed it here and started my down, down, up, up from here, then these guys would shift and rotate. So since I know that orange is supposed to be on top, if I grab from here and do that, this is going to shift and still be orange on top. Both of these guys are going to shift and rotate 180 degrees with the orange on top. So here's what I mean by that. Basically, I'm going to go grabbing it from here, because these have to shift and rotate, down, down, up, up, and that's exactly what happened. So now that I've done that, 100% of the time you're going to find that these corners are also going to be in, these colors are going to be in, and all I have to do from there is match them up with the proper corner correlated with the green here. So there that is, there that is, there that is, there that is. So that was a long way of going through a very simple step, but that was phase 1. Phase 1 is lining these up. This is the diamond phase here. Alright, so now we get to phase 2, and the phase 2 is edge placement, where we are going to rely upon our classic 3x3 strategies, but just applied to one shape lower. Basically 3 layered strategies, but going from 5 sides to 4 sides to just 3 sides, as we talked about. And that's going to be our RU, RIU, R1U, and RI. So let's see what's already kind of in place sort of for us. Over here you can see that this is in place, so that's good. This is not. This needs to come over to here, so we have to rotate that. And I can rotate it counterclockwise by starting with an RI. But what am I going to do about this? I don't want to move that out. Well, because I can rely on the process of construction and deconstruction, that whatever I do before the algorithm, I can just undo after the algorithm, why don't I just move this up here in order for this to move here and this to move here, then I can move it back, and then there's no harm done. So we'll just move this up, and because I want to move it counterclockwise, it's going to be RI, UI, R, UI, RI, UI, R, UI. So now that's over here, but let's reconstruct it back, so no harm done. These are all fine. Okay, what about the other silver while we're in the neighborhood? It's over here. I got to get this over to here, so what I'll do is find a way to move this in the same level. And it might mean moving it twice, which might be more than I want to do at this point. So why don't I just focus on the green side here? Green and red just needs to come over here, so I'm just going to make that happen. Again, counterclockwise, RI, UI, R, UI, RI, UI, R, UI. And that was pretty user-friendly, pretty simple. And what else we got? Well, this blue one is close to being in place. I've got this of course is where it needs to be. This is not where it needs to be. It needs to come over here. But I don't want to ruin this, so I'm just going to deconstruct it by moving this side up. This doesn't belong there anyway. And because this is going to be a clockwise rotation, R, U, R, I, U, R, U, R, I, U. Again, just that variation, and then reconstruct it back. So these guys are where they need to be. So what else we have? Well, here's the white one here. This needs to make it to here. This doesn't belong here anyway, so we're just going to do a clockwise rotation. R, U, R, I, U, R, of course, our 1U, and R, I. Let's see what else we've got here now. So this is in, and let's look at our greens. This needs to come over here. This needs to be exactly where it is. So I'm just going to move this up, move this around like this in a counterclockwise fashion. R-I, U-I, R, U-I, R-I, U-I, R, U-I. And then move that back down. So we're liking this, we're liking this. Where's the other green? Here's the other green here. So now what I can do is I can move this over here so that this coincides with this. I'm not moving anything else out, so that's fine. Move this up here, and this is a clockwise. Clockwise. So R, U, R-I, U, R, the 1U, and R-I. Okay, so green is good. And I think we have to move this back. Okay. Careful to reconstruct things again. So let's see what else we have. How about yellow and red? Right over here. I could move it up to here, which is pretty good, but what about this guy? There's not too much that I can move away from there, so I gotta be careful with that. How about this moving to here, which is okay, but then I have to replace this with this. So I want this to come over to here, but I want this to be protected, so I'm just gonna move this up like so. So this will come here. That's gonna be R, U, R, I, U, R, U, R, I, U, and then bring that back down there. So that's good, that's protected here. Now I did blast this one out, and I moved it over to here. So why don't we try to move this up here so that this can rotate back to here. So this is going to be a counterclockwise rotation. R-I, U-I, R, U-I, R-I, U-I, R, U-I. So that's where it needs to be there. Bring this back here. Okay, so fairly quickly you should start to get it down to the last few. So this is out, and this is out. So we actually have 3 that are out. Unfortunately, they're kind of far from each other. Once I have 3 that are out, I can try to put them all in the same face to cycle them. So anyway, this is going to have to come over here. This is going to come over here. And this, of course, is going to come over here. So what I'm going to do, these 2 are already on the same face. So I'm just going to have to do 2 moves. You're not more than 2 moves away from putting anything anywhere you want it. So I'm just going to do a move like this, and then do a move up. And I just have to remember what I did. And I'm going to have to move this down in order to get that back. So that means this will come here, this will come here, and this will come here. So that's going to be a counterclockwise move. So R-I, U-I, R, U-I, R-I, U-I, R, U-I. Once I've done that, just be careful to remember exactly what I did to move these in. So this will move here, and this will move here. Okay, so ends part 2. Part 2 is basically placing our outer shell. So we've placed our outer shell over here using the 3x3 strategies. Now that we've isolated these, we're going to isolate these guys. And now we're moving into the master skewb strategy, where we're moving it from the middle here. We've already designed a 3-cycle, but this is pretty easy, and I'll show you why. Say we want to start filling this in over here. So we'll find an orange. Here's an orange over here, which makes sense because here's a white over here, so I can start cycling these around. So what I'm going to do is I know I'm going to cycle this to here, this will go down here, and this will come up here. So why don't I just move this down here so that this is part of the cycle to come up here, and I'm just going to move this over here so I can get a white for white and orange over here. It's pretty easy to find your way back home, but if you keep doing it by twos, you'll solve it quicker. Now, I always do it because you don't need to do it any other way. I always do it on the right side. So I'm going to move the right slice down. And if you ever forget which slice to do, it's going to be the one that'll move this guy here. So move this right slice down, and then go from the right side, down, down, up, slice it back, and then down, up, up. And then it's really a matter of remembering what we did and how to find our way back home. So I believe we turn this over here and turn this over here. So the end result, we put a white one in here, we put this orange over here. So what other opportunities can we take? Well, here's a red and here's an orange. So why don't we do the same thing? Turn this over here and turn this over here. End up with an orange here, end up with a red over here. And the silver is going to shift over to there. So slice that down and to the right, then down into the right here, down, down, up, slice it back, down, up, up. Simple as that, there that is. And now we just kind of move things back in. This moves back here, this moves back down here. So we're getting it. You can fill in all the sides if you want, or you can just start filling things that you think need to be dealt with. How about here? We got yellow and green. So I'm going to move this like so. This is already in line. So these three are going to cycle and quickly go down here, down, down, up, slice it back, down, up, up. So again, I'm really doing exactly the same thing I did with the master skewb. Nothing new under the sun. What else? How about this silver that we've been negating? Well, here's a silver here, so let's move this down. This is a red here, so we'll move this across, move it down here, down, down, up, slice it back, down, up, up, and just reconstruct it back. Boom, kerplow. So far so good. And we filled in all the red side over here. Okay, blue, this works pretty well. This will come here, but why don't we turn it over here so that this yellow can come down? So move this down here, down, down, up, across here, down, up, up. So we're good. Now understand, the strategy that I'm using was specifically so that I didn't have to learn anything new. I'm an old dog and I don't like to learn new tricks so much. It might not be the fastest way to do it, but it is the most consistent, and it's the simplest so that you can pick the puzzle up at any time and probably have good luck trying to solve it. So silver, what other silvers? Well, how about here? Because it's orange. So we'll move this over here so that the silver can come up here. And then I'll turn this over here so that I can put an orange in over here as well. So slice it down, lining it up here, slice it down into the right, down. We've got down, down, up, slice it back, down, up, up. And then turn things back. Let's make sure I'm doing that right. Yeah. And pow. Okay, so now what do we have? Well, I've got these two. So I'm going to move this down to here and move this over here so that I can three cycle these guys. These three right here. Move it down, down, down. Oof. Up, move it back, down, up, up. And just move these back where I want it. Okay. All right, we're cruising. These guys can be correlated with each other. Well, I usually move the bottom one first, just how I remember it. So that's here. And I can turn this over here. Move it down, 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 up. Move it here, down, up, up. And then we'll move this back here and move this back over here. So now, very quickly, we've got ourselves, or fairly quickly, to the last two edges here. So this is postured to come here, this is postured to come here. So this should be the game-ending maneuver here. So move this down, and we've got down, down, up, move it back, then down, up, up, and you are done. So, from theory to practice, figuring out different algorithms based on previous knowledge of previous puzzles, isolating variables, constructing, deconstructing, and able to solve it. It's a very fun puzzle. It's a very good addition to the face turners, a very good addition to the collection. If you've got a face turning cube and a face turning Megaminx, you might as well get a face turning octahedron. Strategies are similar, and if you've got one of these, and one of these, you might as well get one of these. So, hope that helped. It's a Lanlan product, which means it moves fantastic. Thanks for watching.